on Sundays. It's kind of my day of rest and day with my family, but there's been some stuff going on. Jay, good to have you in here right away in the chat. Awesome. Thank you guys. Let me set up the chat so I can see everybody's. Give people a little bit of time to file in here before we get on today's, I'll call it emergency topic. Anyone who has a Dodge Ram with the eTorque is definitely going to want to tune in for this. I've done some work on eTorques. I've done videos on it. A lot of you guys already know how I feel if you have consumed enough of my content. But today we're going to dive into a problem that I called out 3 years ago. I knew this day was going to come, and the last couple of months have just kind of compounded the problems. So just doing some setting up here before we get rolling, guys. Just want to make sure everything's good. So, all right, I think we're all set. All right, so we'll get started. Looks like just Jay and I are in here to start out. Guys, thank you guys for all the support. It really has helped. The subscriber count is up. The likes are up. Make sure you guys are hitting the like button, hitting the subscribe button, ringing the notification bell. If you guys really want to help out the channel, make sure you share these videos so other people see them. As we grow this, we're going to start trying to do merch for you guys. So this is something that I'm working on for the future. As long as we can get the building going, we're going to go that route, and we're going to get some content or some merch out there for you guys. My content changes with every video. I try not to recycle topics unless it's a once a year topic recycle. And there are a few things coming up in the works that are going to be like the once a year cycle videos. So just pay attention for those. I usually will post videos ahead of time. Like if you guys follow me on Facebook or Instagram, I do put reels out at the beginning of the week, giving you guys a teaser of what's coming. Also, people who stick around to the end of the live stream, you guys get to see kind of what I'm going to be working on ahead of time. I show you the sneak peek. I show you some of the products. I kind of give you a little bit of breakdown of what's coming for the next week. This one today is a special topic, guys. I've talked about the eTorque. I've ran this thing up the flagpole so many times. I've even had issues with shadow banning from it because they don't want this to get out there. Basically, there is a massive Achilles heel in the Dodge Rams, and it's in the eTorque. We are going to go to the board. I am going to draw out this system so that you guys have a better understanding of how this system works. I don't have an eTorque sitting here, so I can't show you guys the actual product or what is on the eTorque, but I will show you on the board what they look like, how they work, and why we're seeing the failures. Like I said, I called these failures out 3 years ago, and I knew because of the buyout between Fiat and Stellantis, I knew that there was going to be a parts shortage, and that's exactly what's going on today. I've had more than probably 10 people already message me on just my YouTube side alone, telling me what's going on, that they can't get their truck fixed, and it's been 60, 80, 90 days out because they can't get the parts. Some of that is due to supply chain, but it's not the supply chain that you guys think it is. The reason it's a supply chain is because Stellantis is slow at rebuilding these things and getting them back out. Let's go ahead and go over to the board. If you guys got anything, chat it in down below. All the chats help. Make sure you guys hit that like button. We really want to drive this video up as much as possible because this is a special. I don't normally go live on Sundays, so this one's a special one for you guys that we're breaking down this problem with the eTorque now. I will give you guys some ways around this or ways to get through this problem, but I'm also going to give you the ultimate solution to the problem. And you may or may not like that. That will be at the end. We have one here from, is that pronounced Naro? Hello, brother. Hello. Good to have you here on this Sunday. We're going to get started on the topic. Guys, if you have any questions, chat them in down below. I'll read as many of them as I can on screen. I try to read everyone's. Okay, cool. Thanks, Nar. Thanks for tuning in on this Sunday. Normally we do this every Saturday at 1 p.m. This is a special one because I've had so many people reaching out to me about the problem with the eTorques that I really need to dive into this. RDX explained, donated $10. Thank you very much. Thank you so much for that. Naro again. I am from, I cannot pronounce that to save my life, not without butchering it pretty bad. But good to have you here. I know that's not in the US, so good to have you in here on this Sunday. I haven't heard about the eTorque. Jay, you're going to want to tune in. Actually, Jay, you've been on here quite a bit and helping me a lot. Guys, as you're about to see, people who are in here and help me out a lot, I do promote people to the mod squad. There you guys go. Thank you guys so much. Everybody, welcome Jay to our wrench squad. Our wrench squad is comprised of people who tune in on a regular basis, who help provide content, and also help look up research for people who have questions down below. They also kind of help monitor the chat as I go. Naro, where are you from? I am from the US, so I live in the US. So a lot of the stuff I talk about is basically domestic cars in the US. I don't do a whole lot with import, but I do kind of dabble into some of the more problematic side of import stuff. So we do that as well. RDX, by the way, where are you from? I'm from the US, like I said. I made a video dedicated to what my dad should do. Okay, so you kind of did your own on what he should do with that vehicle that he had, that he was having problems with. That was the curb one that we talked about yesterday, right? Yes, I took a clip, stream clip. Awesome, cool. Thank you. Yeah, on that, make sure he goes in and gets that checked out. Don't let him drive on that too much longer because it could potentially cause bigger problems where the wheel might come off and cause a lot bigger problems. So, Ivan, I cannot read that, but it says a Volvo XC60. I'm not understanding what you're having problems with. Again, I'm from the US, so I speak English. I'm going to tell him later this afternoon. Yeah, Jay, definitely do that. Don't let him keep driving on it until it gets inspected. Make sure that somebody that knows cars looks at that, because the wheel could come off and it would be very dangerous. Not only for him, but for other people as well. I am in India and I'm going to the US to study. How many years have you lived in the US? Or how many years have to live in the US to get citizenship? RDX, I don't know the number of years to get citizenship. I do know you have to apply. And through that application process, they're going to do background checks. They're going to do everything, even possibly credit checks. They're going to look at everything that surrounds like your background before they're going to give you anything. Now, if you're coming here in the US to study, you're probably coming in on a work or a student visa, which are different. Those visas do have certain regulations and restrictions that you have to adhere to. So just know that's going to be a much more lengthy process. I don't talk about a lot of that stuff here. A lot of my stuff is all automotive, guys. So we do a lot of automotive stuff over here. But to answer your question, RDX, make sure you talk to an immigration attorney before coming, because they're going to advise you in the right direction. And that is a must to do. So if you don't do that, you could wind up getting yourself into trouble or putting yourself in a bad situation. So make sure you talk to an immigration attorney before coming. Jay, he said he was going to make an appointment soon, but he said that 2 weeks ago. Okay. Yeah, if nothing else, even if you have a friend that knows cars or you know it well enough, go over and inspect that vehicle before he drives it any further. Just make sure that the rim isn't damaged, make sure that the suspension isn't damaged. Like I told you yesterday, check from one side to the other, check from driver's side to passenger side. Make sure those components are bent in the same pattern. Make sure one doesn't look weird, and then kind of go from there. That's one way to do it. The other way is to jack up that side that hit the curb, push and pull the tire in and out like this and this. What that's going to do is help you check the tie rod ends, upper and lower ball joints, and wheel bearing. So if you do that, that'll eliminate a lot of potential big problems that could have happened. Jay Smith, hey, good to have you in here on this Sunday. Or I should say Junior, J.R. Smith. Jay, he's 60 years old and he's not making the right decisions currently. Yeah, you might want to just kind of intervene, bring somebody over that knows what they're doing and have them inspect it. Guys, there's 14 of you guys in here. Hit that like button. We really want to drive this content up. Before I get into the main topic, this is going to be a big one. I really do need to break this down. I've talked about eTorques so much in the past. I know I might potentially have some haters in here on the eTorque side. Guys, I will address all of those. I'm not ashamed to call you guys out when you guys want to start running up the eTorque stuff. So I don't block people. I don't censor people. It's not what I do. Jay said, when I was getting groceries, I checked both front rims against a random stranger's parked Jeep next. So yeah, Jay, the biggest thing is to get underneath there and look at that suspension though, because when he hits that curb, like I said, it jams that bottom side of that suspension inward. That can do a lot of damage to your lower control arms and that ball joint, and also the wheel bearing. RDX, by the way, what is your favorite car? So, I've only got one like. Let's get 3, and I'll tell you guys my number 1 car I wish I could get my hands on that I've never had. 3 likes. Let's go. Jay, my brother is also a mechanic. Have your brother look at it. Get him over there and have him look at it. Yeah, definitely tell him to check that out, because you need to make sure that the components are solid after hitting a curb, because there's so much damage that can happen that most people don't see. I've seen people rub up against a curb with big tires, and the tires themselves had to give, but it still did damage the suspension because they hit it at such a hard angle. I've seen people hit so hard that it damages the rim, punches the rim, but it also pulls the lower control arms when they hit more of like a glancing blow. At like a 45, when they hit that curb, it'll jam that A-arm back and pull that stuff apart. Yeah, Jay, if it looks different, make sure that you have your brother inspect that. Make sure that you guys look that thing over top to bottom. Bring a jack with you and jack it up. You're not going to see suspension parts, and you're not going to see broken component parts unless you have that thing jacked up. Because once it's jacked up, you'll be able to push and pull on it. And if he brings a pry bar with, he can check the end play in that wheel bearing. And that'll narrow down 90% of your problems. So if that thing is jammed, then that is what the squeaking noise is coming from. Could be. Like I said, the squeaking could be a couple of different things. You're going to have to take the wheel off to find out what's squeaking. You could potentially just have a bent dust cover. You could have brake issues. 9 times out of 10, when you hear a squeaking noise, if it's temporary or it goes away, you want to narrow it down from there. If it wasn't squeaking before he hit the curb and now it is, there is a potential that he hit it so hard that the wheel bearing itself, all the windings inside the wheel bearing unspun. And what you're hearing is those copper windings making noise inside there. So that could be some of your squeaking as well. You'll be able to tell that once you jack it up and move that rim. From the front wheel bearing, yeah, very possible. You need to jack it up and check that bearing. Absolutely. All right, guys, we have not gotten the likes up. Come on, there's 21 of you in here. Get the likes up to 3, and I'll tell you guys what my favorite car is. It was a question that was asked by RDX. It wasn't squeaking before. Okay, so now that you know that piece of the puzzle, now you know that you need to look into other things. You're going to need to look into that wheel bearing because there is a potential that it jammed. When it hit that curb, it jammed the wheel back hard enough to actually cause damage inside of there. Chief says, 49 Merc is mine. That's an oldie and a goodie. That really is. One more like, guys, and I'll tell you my favorite car. That question was asked by RDX. I haven't checked the Carfax on it. So you can check it. Jay, I'm going to have you pull that if that's a plate number. Don't leave that up there, please. If you want to do stuff like that, make sure you guys find my email down in my chat. Email that stuff to me. Don't leave that on screen for people. All right, we reached 3. Guys, my number 1 favorite car is a 72 Chevelle SS with a 494. I wish I could find one. I wish I could get my hands on one, but I can't. I've tried, and they're way too expensive. That's my number 1 favorite car. My second is an 89 IROC, which I did own at one point. That 89 IROC was a fun car with a 350. It was awesome. I loved how that car ran. It was a knockdown, drag out, fun car on the street. It cornered like a race car. Yeah, thank you, Jay. Yeah, we don't want to leave that stuff up for obvious reasons. But yeah, the email is down below if you want to email it to me, or just email me like the description of the car, your make, model, and then if there's any submodel to it. So like a submodel on a GMC Jimmy would be either SX or SLT or LT or something like that. That would be a submodel. Give me that information and I could look up on Carfax what it is. But if you're looking for if there's any prior damage, yeah, you're going to want to use a Carfax or something like that to be able to figure out exactly what the vehicle has had happen to it. That's what the Carfaxes are really for. And they don't do everything. Guys, I'll tell you right now, the insurance company wanted to total that out. A simple bumper cover. I bought that bumper cover for this car, and with everything I needed to do to it, less than $1,000. They wanted to do that for about $5,000. They were going to total the car out. They said the car was only worth about $6,000. That would have totaled the car out because it went more than half the value of the vehicle. If you guys want, I'll do a separate video on how insurance companies figure out totaled vehicles or not. That's not really today's topic. Today is the eTorque. This was a last minute video, guys. Normally we go live Saturdays at 1 p.m. Central Time. I'm doing a special today so we can get this information out. I've had a lot of people reach out to me about problems that they're having with the supply or being able to get parts for the eTorque. I'm going to explain why this is happening, why I saw it coming 3 years ago, and what you can potentially do to get out of that bad situation. Guys, there's 32 of you in here. Hit the like button. Let's get the likes up. Let's get the engagement up. Let's get more people in here today. I really want to get this topic out there. It is a topic that we really should be paying attention to. And it's not just from the Stellantis company. This happens with every manufacturer. Ford has had their major catastrophe failures that have had massive recalls across the industry, and Chevy is no different. They've also had their massive recalls. They've also had things that have been just a total disaster project. Unfortunately, this time Stellantis is choosing to double down on this topic. Rather than realizing this is a bad design and a bad setup, they're pushing forward with it and pushing more of these vehicles out there, hoping that if they get enough out there, that they'll be able to make enough money off this vehicle. This is really, really, really bad. And I'm going to explain why the whole setup is bad in the first place, because like I said, I called this out a few years ago. This is my second account. I'm going to bring my main up. Okay, Jay, yeah, let me know when your main account is up. Chief says, do you have any big brand mechanic stores? Or do I like any of the big brand mechanic stores? Okay, so here's the thing. All right, Jay, let me get, before I answer that question, I'm gonna go ahead and mod up. All right, guys, that's Jay has 2 accounts. I've just modded both of his accounts. He's been in here lately, really helping out. He'll be good at, you know, checking the chat, making sure you guys are staying on topic and bringing stuff to the light. Thank you guys for the likes. Continue getting the likes up. There's 35 of you in here. We're going to get into the main topic shortly. So big name mechanic stores that I like. I do like Discount Tire. The reason I like Discount Tire is I can get my tires done. I can take them rims, have them mount them and balance them for me. I do like Quick Lube for the alignment side, but oftentimes it varies between shops. So don't just assume that one is going to be good if you live in a different state or a different area. You need to do homework on each. So once you find a good shop, make sure that you do your homework with them. Check their pricing with other people, do that comparison. The other thing you're going to want to do is make sure you double check the work, make sure the work was done and performed properly. One little tip I can give you if you're looking at taking a vehicle to a shop: if they install your rims with an impact, don't go back there. Impacts are only meant to bring the bolts close. You need to torque those rims. You don't use torque sticks. They're not accurate. They don't work. If a shop is using torque sticks to install rims, don't go back to them. And I know I just pissed off a few shops by saying that, but the reason you do not use torque sticks is because the torque is not accurate. You could have one that's 50 pounds torqued on 50 pounds tighter than a different one. That's not the way those are supposed to work. They need to be evenly torqued on so that that rim is constantly held to a tight pressure. And some of that reason is because your brake components right there are also attached with the rim. So when the rim goes on, it goes against that rotor and the bolts pull all of that together. And when it's not tight and not tight all the way around equally, it can create a wobble situation where one side might be tight, but the other side is slightly loose and you get this motion going on. And it may not happen right away, but it does happen over time. And this is why people lose rims going down the road. So one quick way to tell if it's a good shop or not, and do they use torque sticks when they put their rims on. Another good one, make sure that they replace your oil filters when you have an oil change done. Some of the quick lube shops are shady. What they'll do is they'll drop the oil, put fresh oil in, and never put a filter on it, but they're going to charge you for that filter. So guys, these are little tricks, and I can do a separate video breaking all of that down if you guys would like as well. Let's see here. I'll go back up to J. Mod on account main now. Yep, we got you. We got you, Jay. You're on here as a mod, both on your main and your regular. In your opinion, what do you think about the power shift gearbox? Power shift gearboxes work when you're doing things that you need that for. I wouldn't necessarily justify it on a street car. It's not really necessary, or on a street pickup. You don't really need that. It's overkill. So when you're dealing with stuff like that and you start beefing these components up and putting heavier components in, you start looking at the cost and analysis of what happens when those things break. And that's exactly what today's topic is going to be on, guys. We're going to talk about the cost analysis of this stuff when this stuff does start failing. And I know some of the haters are already going to say, well, there's a warranty on it. That's great. What do you do after 100,000 when that warranty's up? You need to think about that farther down the road. Now, if you got enough money that you're just going to keep trading it in, then all you're doing is adding to the problem, because you keep buying these POSs, driving it, dumping it, and letting the next guy fix the problem. But that's where we're at with this system, and I have to call it out because it's a bad design, bad system, and they're just doubling down on it. Dad drove his 2018 Camry from 2019 to 2021 with no oil change. Are you kidding me? Or 2022. Oh, Jay. Yeah, you guys need to put him on a maintenance schedule or something. He is just not taking care of anything. That's bad. That'll mess an engine up like that. Damn. No, yeah, you guys need to get on. You guys need to get on him about that, and you guys need to start looking that vehicle over for him. Any tips on keeping your 4x4 from going bad? Depending on the 4x4 that you've got, the biggest thing is checking bearing wear. Anytime you do an oil change, make sure you check the drive shafts. Make sure if you've got smaller shafts, make sure those boots don't get torn and get greased down inside. Like if you have a CV axle in the front. I'm not sure what vehicle in particular you're talking about. If you give me the vehicle, I can tell you if it'll have CV axles or if it's a self-contained axle or solid axle, depending on what he has. And then I can give you a better idea there as far as the maintenance on a four-wheel drive. Biggest thing is don't ever run the transfer case out of oil. Don't run the transmission out of oil. Make sure the differentials stay fully lubed and do the oil change in them. 2012 Jeep Liberty. Okay, so with the Liberties, you're going to have CV axles up front. Make sure that those boots don't get torn on those CV axles, because once you get dirt and stuff down inside the CV axle, the axle is going to go bad and you'll have to pull those out and swap them out. So that's one thing to watch out for. Next is wheel bearings. Obviously, that's a potential with front wheel drive or four wheel drive, is you have those bearings that you have to watch out for. The other thing is like I said, make sure that the transfer cases stay full on fluid. Make sure you change the fluid in those transfer cases. Half the people don't change the fluid in their transfer cases. That fluid goes bad and it starts wearing out bearings. Also check your drive shafts. Make sure that if there's any drive shaft going to a differential, make sure those U-joints are in good shape. A bad U-joint will actually tear out a bearing inside either the front or rear ends, or inside that transfer case. So make sure that the U-joints are in good shape. If they're greasable, make sure you grease them. At least every 2 to 3 oil changes, you put a pump of grease in them. So that should keep the four-wheel drive in fairly good shape. Jay, I got my Chrome box and email you on school email account sooner or later. Yeah, just email me that information and I'll see what I can do to kind of get you some information, or where you can look. Usually a lot of times Carfaxes, I just tell people to kind of run their own because it's a lot easier that way. Plus then you can kind of really dial down what you're looking for, and then you have the information right away rather than me having to forward it to you. The Camry has 27K on it for some reason, even though he drove it like 2 or 3 years with no oil changes. Yeah, still, even though he has low miles on it, he should still do at least a once-a-year oil change. And the reason why is to keep any condensation out of the oil. If you don't keep that condensation out, what can happen is it'll just build up inside that oil and start doing damage inside the engine. It can be hard on bearings because it loses its ability to remain lubricated or provide that lubrication property. Once it does that, it starts doing internal bearing damage, cams, lifters, a whole bunch of scary stuff that nobody likes dealing with. Because once you pop one of these engines open, you're thousands of dollars into a project. Guys, when we do the engine build for Crimson Vortec, I'm going to be spending a buttload of money on that motor. It's not going to be a cheap project. Yes, guys, we did vote on doing a motor build on the channel. I will be doing it here on YouTube. So that is something that's coming up after we finish Malibu Steel. How often do I have to maintain my diff on my F-150 2012? I live in Canada, so I change my oil and tires a lot with rust coats here and there. It has 77K on it right now. So this question is from Supreme DES, and he is asking, when does he need to change the fluid in his differentials? Oftentimes we can go as far as even pushing them to 100,000, but it all depends on what you're putting that truck through. Are you pulling? Are you towing? Are you putting boats into lakes? If you're doing stuff like that, I would suggest at least draining it and replacing the fluid, maybe twice a year if you're putting a boat in the water, because any water that gets into that differential through the breather tube on the rear axle could potentially destroy that rear end or rear axle. So you're going to need to change that fluid out and keep fresh fluid in there so you don't wash the bearings or cause it to go out prematurely. The other thing is you might have to relocate that breather if you're backing boats into water. You might want to move the breather up farther so it won't get flooded out. Those are one thing, something you can do. If you don't do that and you don't really get a whole lot in there, once a year would be a good mark if it's your daily driver. If you don't drive it all the time and you use it just mainly to get around in the winter time, you could do a once a year check, but I would probably plan on about every 3 years dropping the oil and putting fresh in. That's kind of my rule of thumb on differentials, on transfer cases, stuff like that, is usually about a 3-year mark. Fluid comes out, fresh goes in. Jay, that's probably why it has like a service maintenance light on soon. It can, because he maybe has missed the oil change. So now it's saying service the vehicle soon. It could also have other damage going on because he didn't change the oil. So first thing I would do is change the oil, reset it, see if that maintenance light goes away. If it doesn't, you're going to have to dig into it a little bit further. Dean, hi, I'm a mechanic, delivery driver or delivery mobile service on location. But somebody told me that I'm not a real mechanic because I don't use a bridge for exhaust replacement. Okay, first of all, let me break this down for everybody here. Guys, get the lights up. What I'm about to say is very controversial, and a lot of my hardcore mechanics get pissed off every time I say this. Just because you work in a shop doesn't mean you're not a mechanic. Guys, let's be honest. I'm working out of my garage. I've owned 2 automotive businesses. I've been underneath the hood for 30 some years underneath cars. I have tuned cars. I have built engines. I have designed performance cars, both related to suspension setups and motor setups. Just because somebody is a mobile mechanic doesn't mean that they're not a mechanic. You don't even have to have it as your main job to be a mechanic. This is a skill set that you pick up over the years. And as you pick that up, you use that to kind of help you out in life. This is one of these talents and skills that once you have it, you don't lose it. It's one of those things, as long as you keep your body in good shape, you can continue doing it. Again, a lot of the mechanics that are hardcore mechanics that work in a shop every single day get a little ticked off when I tell people, hey, they're mechanics too, so lay off of them. But yes, each mechanic will handle a repair their own way. So to answer Dean's question, whenever you make a decision on a repair, you need to look at the best possible way to repair it to where you're going to get the longest life out of that repair. Sometimes that means you're going to use the quicker method. Sometimes that means you have to do the much longer method. Each one is different. And what you have to do is ask yourself, what is the correct way to fix it? So just because you use one style clamp over another doesn't mean that you're not doing the job properly. As your talents grow and as you get more experience and you do more things, you start seeing quicker ways, faster ways, and easier ways to do things. This is what helps you generate money as a mobile mechanic, but at the same time, when you provide quality repairs, your customers start compounding because you're doing such a great job for them that they'll talk about what you're doing. And there's nothing wrong with mobile mechanics. To be honest with you, there's times I've gone mobile just to be able to help a customer of mine because they were out on the road when it went down. And I bring what I need to so I can get to them and figure out what's going on. So there's nothing wrong with that. Guys that only want to sit in the shop and make you bring everything to them, they've got their purpose. They have their things that they're good at and that they do very well. But at the same time, they're not going to be the most rounded mechanics. And that's really what you look for when you want a mechanic. You want somebody that's well-rounded, that can handle electrical, that can handle suspension, that can handle an engine or a transmission. You want somebody that can handle a lot of different things because that variety means that they're going to have a better understanding of what's going on with that than somebody who's just looking at it. Guys, yesterday the topic was on don't just throw parts at a vehicle. Sometimes some of these shops will just chuck a part at it because that's the code that comes up. They don't realize sometimes that there is a much bigger system in play. So if you guys get a chance after this video today, go over and check out yesterday's video. I go into depth and I really break this down. So, but yes, that was a really good one that kind of explained all that. Let me get caught up with Jay and then we need to get into today's topic. Yeah, thank you. I missed the oil change. Yeah, you're going to want to get that caught up. Sounds like a better decision instead of driving for another 1,000 miles. Yeah, I wouldn't keep driving it like that until you get that oil changed. Get some fresh stuff in there. Make sure that everything's done properly. My dad has been driving cars since the 80s and 90s. Yeah, just to me, it kind of sounds like he's gotten to the age where he just doesn't want to maintain it anymore. P. Norton 75, one of my wrench squad members. Good to have you in here today. Diagnostics is one of the most important part of being a mechanic. One of the better people I've seen at this is South Main Auto. Correct. I've seen him. He's good at it. Very good at it. I think he didn't change the oil in that year. Oh, Jay, you're getting into the territory of he just doesn't want to take care of it. Dean, I've invested a lot into my company. I've learned a lot about cars in general, but thanks. Feel motivated again. I'm subbed. Thank you, Dean. Awesome. Dean, if you provide enough knowledge and you really kind of help out here and you show up on a regular basis, I will wrench you. I like having mechanics as my wrench squad members because they really do help. P. Norton has been very good about this. I get that guys can't tune in every week, but I'm glad to see that I have some wrench squad members in here today. So, but yeah, to get back to P. Norton's comment here. Yes, I have seen some of the stuff from South Main Auto. He does really good at diagnostic stuff. And I really do think that the more we look at these things and the more we analyze these systems, the better we can understand it going forward in the future. And this is what it's going to take. But some of these guys are getting up there in age. So as they start aging out of this game, it's going to be up to the younger generation to step in. I'm not a young player in it. I started at a young age. I'm middle-aged now, but I don't have forever in the industry either. You know, I probably got a good 10, maybe 15 years in it before my body just says, you're not doing this anymore. hopefully in that time I can fully give out all the knowledge I got so that somebody else can pick up that torch. And that's really why I'm here. It's the whole point of what I'm doing. Let's see here. Jay said again, he is literally destroying the engine at this point. Yeah, he is. Somehow he puts 30 to 40 mpg to the gallon. He's probably doing that because he doesn't drive very hard. He's not heavy footing it. Guys, there's 17 of you in here. Like the video. We're just about to get into the topic today. I'm just getting caught up on chats before we get going. His body is like gone from car maintenance. Yeah, guys, this industry is horrible on your body. It tears your body up. It completely wrecks your quality of life in your much later years. I had to really look at what I was doing, make sure I kind of understand the stresses on my body, and I have to eat better, take care of myself. I'm not in the best shape, but I'm not in horrible shape, but I could do a lot better. We need to help the youth out there, the future of the U.S. Correct, Chief, correct. We really do need to get the younger people engaged in this content. We need to get them interested in working on cars again. It's how I got started. My first vehicle was a 74 Dodge Ram Adventurer SE, which is a pickup. It was the long box, regular cab with a 360 engine in it. That was my first truck. It was first vehicle. And honestly, I'm glad that it was. It kind of got me to learn about different vehicles. I didn't just get pigeonholed into GM or into Ford. I've had Fords, I've had Chevys, I've had Dodges, I've had them all. I have a Toyota. I mean, I have seen so many different things that make all the difference in the world. I tell young men building maintenance and car mechanic and John 3:16. Very nice, Chief. Very nice. Depends on his future on his car maintenance. Yeah, Jay, you're in an uphill battle with him. You're gonna have to start intervening, and you're gonna have to start actually doing the car maintenance for him at this point. So I'm transitioning us over to the board at this point. Okay. So I'm going back to the board for this one, guys, because I need to draw this out for you so you understand the system. All right, you guys get to see the lovely board from yesterday. Guys, leave a thumbs up down below if you like the board content, because this allows me to draw it out so you guys can understand it a little bit better. It also helps you guys get the visual when I'm explaining something. So leave a thumbs up if you guys like the board. All right, so our topic today, guys, it is on the eTorque problem. And I called this problem 3 years ago. So let's get into this. First of all, let's talk about what eTorque is. What is eTorque? This is a hybrid system. Okay, with a hybrid system, usually this mainly refers to you have a gasoline side or diesel. And then you have an electric side. And what this refers to is oftentimes the hybrids will use the gas engine to power something related to electricity. In the case of Ram and Jeep, referring to the eTorque, they're using something called an MGU. All right, give me a 1 if that makes sense, 2 if it doesn't, and tell me why. Jay, thumbs up for the board. Awesome. Bill, good to have you in here. Part of my wrench squad today. God, you guys, my wrench squad is really chiming in today. You guys are awesome. When you can't get off the creeper, it's time to slow down. Correct, Bill. When it takes you too long to get up off the ground when you're working on stuff, it's time to consider what you're going to do for the future. So 1 if you guys understand everything I've just explained so far, 2 if you don't, and then tell me why. They all make sense to me. Awesome, awesome. See if we can get a few more people in here. Again, 1 if you understand, 2 if you don't, tell me why. This is the basics of what we're going to be talking about today. So the basics are Ram and Jeep related to the eTorque. Gas or diesel is your main power source. Electric is your hybrid system. And that system is ran off of your MGU. Okay, so I got nothing else going there. Guys, continue hitting the like button and the subscribe button. Trying to build the channel this year. So I'm going to erase all of this and we're going to get into what is an MGU. So our MGU so this is our belt. This is our belt. This is our pulley. This is the MG unit. The MGU is mounted down on the corners here. There's bolts that run in here. They're mounted right there. MGU sits right like that. It sits inside the vehicle. All your electrical connections are usually on the back side of this or located on the side towards the battery or fuse panel. So you'll have your battery and fuse panel over here. The plugins will be on this side. This is the MGU. This is what's notoriously known for going bad. All right, does that make sense to you guys? 1 if it does, 2 if it doesn't. There's 14 of you guys in here. Make sure you guys hit that like button and subscribe. 1 if it makes sense, 2 if it doesn't. I really want to break this down in the most simplest way possible. I want to make sure you guys have a good understanding of what we're looking at. Jay with the 1. Awesome. Awesome. Okay. If I don't see any 2s here, I'm going to continue on. So this is the MGU. I'm about to draw what that actually looks like on a different vehicle. So we'll start there, and we'll do this over here. This will be an AC compressor. We'll do a water pump. We'll do a crank. Do a tensioner. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and draw this in here. I'm going to use a different color for the belt. Trying to draw this belt so you guys understand this a little bit better. In some vehicles, you're going to have an idler pulley up here that would push that belt down so you don't get flopping. In fact, I'll just draw that in there for you guys so that doesn't get confusing. This is a very basic front engine setup. This is an older style setup. This would be something you'd see maybe on a GMC Jimmy or something like that, where you have a belt tensioner, idler, water pump, crank, and an AC pulley. But can someone tell me what that is right there? P. Norton says MGU equals motor generator unit. Correct. But what is that one that I haven't labeled over there, guys? What is that one? What is this? Testing the knowledge of some of my wrench squad members. If you guys know, go ahead, put it down below if we don't have other people in the chat hitting anything on it. P. Norton says, nope, AC. AC is over here. So we got AC here, idler here, water pump here, tensioner there, crank there. What's over there? MGT. Nope, it's not an MGT. There we go. We got it. Looks like next big XD got it with the alternator. P. Norton after him got it with the alternator. Hammered Gaming, alternator. Awesome. J, alternator. Yes, correct, guys. This is an alternator. So that's an alternator. Okay, so why did I draw this next to that? I'll give you guys a little bit of time to see if you guys can figure out, why did I draw the one on this side next to that? Why would that matter? Tire shred said tap on the carburetor. Oh, no, this is fuel injected here. We haven't dealt with carburetors in a long time. And if you're tapping on it, all you're trying to do is get your choke to work. Hammered Gaming, because the MGU is a fancy alternator to break it down simply as possible. Correct, Hammered Gaming. That is a good comment. I might actually wrench you for that one. This is this. This is an overcomplicated version of that. That's what this is. This is why I said this was going to be a problem when they first created it. Because when they first made this system, I knew that those were going to fail, and probably fail at a very high rate. And because I knew that was going to happen, I called it 3 years ago, saying we were going to have a shortage on these. And the reason why is they will not release the technology for aftermarket companies to have rebuilt versions of these. This is a patent pending technology that they have the lock on it. They have everything tied to it. The worst part about this is it's tied to the computer. And not just one computer. So it's tied to the main, but it's also tied to an MGU computer. This is why you have to take it to a Dodge dealership to have it fixed. Because they won't release the technology for you to be able to do this. I've known a lot of shops. I've talked to a lot of shops. I have friends that own shops, and they are all pissed off at this. There are rules against this from our own government that says they can't do this, but they're doing it and they're getting away with it. Stop-start technology causes wear and tear on engines. Correct, it absolutely does. Start-stop technology is hard on starters. It's hard on engines. That is another system that we shouldn't have. Now, they're claiming that this MGU is supposed to help pick up on the start-stop. This is supposed to help with a few things. Start-stop. Low stress loads. And takeoff. That's what they claim that that thing does. Darren says, essentially doing the same thing, except MGU also doubles as a unit with a motor and an alternator generator. Yeah, it's got way too many functions on it because of the hybrid system, which is why we don't want to deal with this having multiple functions tied to it. Because the worst part about this whole system, when this goes down, you don't only lose your alternator functions, you lose your start, stop, your take off, all of this. It kills the whole system. The vehicle doesn't move. It's easier to fix an alternator that we can get in an auto parts store than what it is to replace that MGU. And I'm going to go over cost analysis here in a little bit, guys. Awesome. We're at seven likes, 17 of you in here. Guys, hit that like button. I'm bringing you guys solid content on a Sunday, which is not my normal time. Normally it's every Saturday at 1 p.m. Central. He bought a Civic with a start-stop feature. Yeah, I would find a way to either disable it or shut it off, or if it's a button that you have to click every time, I would turn it off. I used to watch a streamer who had his old Ford F-150 that got crushed by a tree from a hurricane. Wow. Yeah, you don't notice the damage that the auto start stop does until it's too late. Hammered Gaming had to bring one after replacing the MGU to the dealer in order to program the controlling unit. Yeah, that's exactly it. Hammered Gaming. Guys, we are having an awesome day today. Guys, welcome Hammered Gaming to the Wrench Squad, guys. Somebody who replaced that MGU has done enough stuff with cars that they understand what this system is and just how bad it is. P. Norton 75, one of my Wrench Squad members. If it ain't leaking, then you're good. Yeah, unfortunately, this MGU, this is an all electrical component. There's nothing to leak in there. The only thing that will leak is there is a tensioner. I drew it this way because there's a tensioner here and a tensioner over here. They're all on one big bracket. They push this together and pull that belt tight around the MGU. This two-piece tensioner does have a shock in it. That shock can go bad and you can get oil leaking out of that. And then this goes off to a separate drive over here. I'm trying to remember if this runs the power steering or if that was running something else. I think it was steering. So I think it was wrapped around the steering separately. Or it was running a water pump. I can't remember for offhand. Dean, combustion engines, party symbol. Yep. Combustion engine setups that don't have hybrids are the way to go. Bill, auto start stop eliminator. Absolutely. If you guys got a way to eliminate it, get it out of there. P. Norton, I was talking about Ricardo. He had changed his transmission fluid and tightened the plug without the torque wrench. He was asking if it was okay. I must have missed that farther up. P. Norton, awesome. Thank you guys. That's why my wrench squad is here. You guys help out and keep an eye on the chat. So on your drain plug on your transmission, if you drain that and you put that plug back in, if there's a certain torque spec, you want to try to adhere to that because some of those pans are made of aluminum. If you over torque it, you could strip it out and have to replace the pan. If you didn't strip it out, it's not a big deal. Just make sure that you don't get too carried away. And if you didn't get it tight enough, make sure you go back underneath there and check it. Jay says auto start stop GM was a hunger call for the Chevy. Yeah, the auto start stop has just been a disaster to begin with. And I'm going to get into that a little bit today, guys. I'll get into auto start stop. P. Norton Supreme. If you want to keep your diff trouble free, I suggest every 60 to 80,000 miles changing the fluid. That's a good call. I know guys that go to 100. Not necessarily saying that's a good thing or a bad thing, but you do need to do regular oil changes on it, and you need to make sure you don't get water in that differential. If you're getting water in there for any reason, you need to analyze why. If you're pulling a boat and you're backing the boat in and you're getting water into your differential, then you need to move that breather so it doesn't get water down in there. Hammered Gaming, one of our newer mods. Let's take a look here. We got those tensioners are a bear. Yeah, they're an absolute pain. I did one on a Ram. That's why I know this system. It can be done yourself, but that tensioner is extremely tight and extremely hard. It is better to have two people there to try to get your hands on it and get that belt on it. So yeah, definitely recommend two people if you're going to attempt that. Mike asks, what is your favorite car brand being a mechanic? All right, Mike, here's what I'm going to do. I need 10 likes. Guys, get the likes up. Get me 10 likes, and I'll tell you one of my favorite car brands to work on. Jay says, that's why every 07 to 2023 Chevy Silverado needs a transmission. Actually, there is a much bigger scandal between the GM and Ford transmissions. I'm not going to get into that today because that is a huge another topic, but it's because the Ford and Chevy work together on their 8-speed transmissions, and they hodgepodged a bunch of parts together from both companies and just totally made a trash transmission. And Chevy does not want to get involved in the replacement of those transmissions. So yeah, I've been pretty frustrated about that one myself. Darren, I have been with Toyota since 01. These hybrids are fancy auto start stops, are not efficient enough for the extra money. More service needed and barely gets any more. Yeah, the hybrid systems are junk, guys. I would never suggest a hybrid system. P. Norton, oil is cheap. Engines, differentials, transfer cases are expensive. Correct, guys. Oil changes are important. Do not skip that. Yes, trash transmission is bad. Yeah, those years of transmissions are a whole nother deal. I could do a separate video on that, but today we're sticking to this. All right, so I think we got a good understanding that the MGU is a fancy alternator. But what this does is a completely different deal. So let's erase this, and we're going to get into the functions of this now, because we need to understand what happens when it fails and why it's such a catastrophic thing. So what we have is we have our MGU. We then also have a battery pack. And a separate computer. So we have a battery pack and we have a computer component. And the only reason I'm saying a computer component, because oftentimes they are attached or really close to the battery pack. On these Rams, the way this is set up is this sits off the front of the motor. This sits behind the back seat. And both the computer and the battery pack sit back there. What happens is the battery pack, what they're not telling people is the battery pack has a 10-year life on it. So they're saying that you'd have to replace that in 10 years. This, they're saying you shouldn't have to replace this, but we're seeing failures at 60K. So about 60,000 miles, we're seeing MGUs conk out. First thing that people are going to say is you have a warranty to 100,000. Okay, first of all, I'm going to call out all the people that have been saying, why are you complaining? You have a warranty to 100,000. Let me call them people out right now. I want to get this one out of the way because this is more or less garbage, BS, crap from manufacturers. It's their way of absolving themselves of responsibility, because you're going to reach that 100,000 realistically. If you use this as a daily driver, you're putting on, let's say you put on, people put on more than 18K a year for miles. But let's just say you put on an average of 20K, okay? 5 years, you're gonna hit that warranty mark. They might have to pay for 1 MGU, but then you're gonna have to pay for this battery cost. An MGU can run you up to $4,000 to get that MGU replaced. The MGU unit itself is $2,800. That's just the unit, and that's dealer cost, guys. That isn't a retail price. Now, you're gonna have your labor and installation. That's gonna run you another it's going to run you another $1,200 because they got to do the programming. This has a code that computer needs in order for these two to talk to each other. The code here has to get linked to that computer. Give me ones if this makes sense, twos if it doesn't, and explain why. Guys, we got 9 of you in here and 9 likes. That's awesome, guys. We have 100% engagement. I love that. Mike Hall, how often do you recommend the oil change? A lot of subjective advice on this, every 50K using synthetic overkill. Okay, so Mike, to answer that question, I recommend oil changes. This is a side note, guys. I recommend oil changes between this mileage range, synthetic or not. So between 4,000 and 5,000 miles, I suggest an oil change. If you're running conventional, it's 3,000 every time if it's conventional. And it's because conventional oil breaks down, synthetic does not. But why do we have to change it? Because the synthetic oil will build up with carbon deposits and actually collect that garbage inside the oil. Your oil filter is what's going to catch it, but it doesn't do a 100% job of it. It still leaves remnants in the oil. That's why your oil looks black when you drop it. It doesn't mean that the viscosity has gotten bad, but it does mean that the oil is contaminated. So the best thing to do is get that oil flushed out between this mileage range and make sure you're putting new filters in it so you don't have problems. So hopefully that answered your question. Hammered Gaming. I appreciate GM as a technician just for their service data, and most GM services include a lot of real good information that other manufacturers do not include, in my opinion. Yes, Hammered Gaming. Yes. To answer this question, what do I like working on the most? I do like working on GM more. It's their designs are simple. They're not hard to figure out. And GM has an abundance of parts, meaning that it's not hard to find parts, whether it be, aftermarket or whatever the case might be. And that's exactly what the problem is here. All of these components have to come from Stellantis. You can't buy these at an auto parts store. They're not there. This is what they call proprietary technology. We're not supposed to have this, especially this late in the game. This late in the game, they should have released that technology. Yeah, they're throttling me right now. I knew they were going to shadow ban me on this topic, guys. I really do appreciate all the likes, because it's really going to help us kind of keep this content going here, because, yeah, they're going to throttle this content because they don't want people knowing how bad this hybrid system is. Jay says it's garbage crap because it's bad. Correct. It's a bad design. So now that we understand what's going on here with the MGU, we understand the cost of replacing an MGU. Let's quickly talk about I didn't hear anyone bucket me about the warranty. I think some of the haters are quiet because I haven't given anything that they can refute yet. I am old school and still do oil changes at 3K oil change on synthetic. Yep, Bill. Some guys are like that. I don't blame you, Bill. Honestly, I try to keep mine at 4. I do my oil changes every 4,000 miles. But I also run full synthetic and high quality filters. I don't use low grade filters. All right, yeah. Guys, they're throttling me really hard, so anything you guys can do to kind of help push the content, share it on your socials. Make sure you guys are hitting the like buttons if you guys haven't done it already. Guys, interact with my mod squad. That's what they're here for. These guys are awesome. They will help you answer your questions. They'll give you good advice. I trust these guys because they've been in here and given me solid info as we've gone on. So now we're looking at the battery pack. What could that battery pack potentially cost us? Keep in mind, this battery is a lithium battery. That is a lithium battery. Let's see if anyone in the chat has pricing on what that battery is going to run you. Jay, my dad's probably gone 8 to 7K without an oil change. Yeah, get on him about that, man. Get on him. Yeah, he's not driving a lot, but at the same time, he still needs to do at least once a year oil changes, even if he's not driving that far. My Toyota might get 4,000 miles, or might only get like 2,000 miles a year, but I do an oil change every spring. P. Norton, you really like pushing it at that 6 to 8K, man. I am never a fan of that. I don't trust the filter systems to be able to trap all of the contaminants that get pushed into the oil. I just don't. For how black it gets and how bad you can smell even fuel buildup in oil as it sits. Oh, sorry, he's talking about the battery pack. Oh, we got too many topics going on here and I lost track of that one. Yeah. So he's making a guess between 6 and 8. Does anyone else want to take a crack at that? Does anyone else want to take a crack at how much that battery pack costs? My call says $3,000. When the computer is attached to this battery pack, this is how much this costs. That's what they're not telling you. Bill chimed in with 10 grand. You're real close. Real close. Yep, so it costs about 11 grand to replace this. Because not only are you replacing this, you're also reprogramming this computer. You're also buying a new computer. These are sold as one unit. They will try to tell you that you can separate these, but the minute you do and they try to program it to an old battery, it doesn't accept the programming. Then they come back and tell you you have to put the battery in. And then if you have anything wrong with this MGU, now you're going to have this cost attached to that as well. So now you're looking at 15 grand to replace their hybrid system. And if your vehicle is over $100K, you ate that cost all on your own. This is why, guys, I tell you some of these hybrid systems are not worth the money. Because in the long run, it just comes back to bite you really hard. Mike Hall, is this the case with all electric cars or just the hybrids? So Mike, this is the hybrid problem. The hybrid problem is that they're using this stuff to do this. So not only do you have the gasoline side that has its own repairs, you now have this hybrid electrical system. And when Ram and Jeep went with that MGU setup, what happened was they were using an electrical system piggyback off of a gas system. These two systems were not compatible because there is no layer of separation between the gas side and the hybrid side. So any good hybrid system realizes that these should be two separate systems, meaning if the hybrid fails, the gas engine will still work. If the gas engine fails, the hybrid could kick in and move the car. When you start blending these two and you let these two systems merge together, now you have two systems that could potentially fail. And if one goes down, it can take the other one. This is why I called out Ram on this when they first did this. This is why I told everyone that this was a bad system and no one should buy these trucks, because that MGU is an oversized alternator, and an alternator is a weak point on every single vehicle. And alternators fail regularly and have to go out. This 60K here, guys, it doesn't matter if it's this MGU or an alternator. Those mileages are pretty much the same. But the cost difference between an MGU and an alternator are dramatically different. Electric car. Oh, I'll go back up and read what we got going here. Jay, electric cars don't have gas to charge them. Yeah, you don't have that backup system. Fully electric cars will be at least double the battery for replacement cost. Guys, this was 2 years ago. That was 2 years ago. On a straight up EV. Give me a 1 if you guys can see that bottom number down there. Yeah, Hammered Gaming, yes, that does include the installation. You are correct. But the reason is that they make you buy the computer with the battery. That's some of it. What is your save in gas? The battery will take the money and eat it up later. Yeah, that's exactly what's going on here. Is we're being sold a hybrid system telling us it's going to save us at the pump. But really, it's robbing us out of our pocket 5 years later. Because as soon as we reach that 100K, that's our bill. All right, solid ones from everybody. Awesome. All right, so yes, this is the difference when you got a straight up EV. You're about $37,000 to replace that battery. You're going to be replacing that battery every 10 to 12 years. So 10 to 12 years, you're going to replace that battery. This is why EVs have horrible resale value, because the closer they get to that 10 to 12 year mark, the more that's going to cost you to put that in there. There are companies that won't touch EVs if they're even anywhere close to that, because they don't want to have to eat that cost if it fails while they own it. The used market on EVs is trash. People don't want them because they don't want to eat that cost. Hammered Gaming. This system is specific for the eTorque Chrysler products at the moment. Correct. This is only for the Chrysler products as of right now. Okay, so now that we know total cost of replacement of the entire system, what is the likeliness that we got to do a total system replacement? This was broken down by somebody else on the internet. They said the likeliness of having to replace all of these components at one time was about 32% of the time you were going to replace all of the components. They said the majority of it was caused by the MGU failing and having a surge in it, and it would go back and wreck the computer. And once it did, it could potentially damage the lithium battery, which meant that they had to replace all 3 components. Mike, I can't speak for Bad Wrench about car brands, but they pretty much all have the same nowadays. They all have their problems. Correct, P. Norton. They absolutely do. Chevys have their glitchy things that they deal with. A lot of times it has to do with engine failures with lifters or transmissions. Fords have their own problems. I know that there's a big recall out right now on the Broncos because there's a shackle on the rear axle that could fail and cause the rear end to come spitting out. I mean, every one of them has their own problems. The database is good. The only reason I like the GM side is because the parts are so readily available in the aftermarket side that I can easily get parts no matter what. That's my only personal reason for liking that. P. Norton, personally, I buy one from companies that I don't accept bailout money. I knew P. Norton was going to go there. You know what? I'm going to school you a little bit, P. Norton. Do you remember a clip that I put out about Ford? I'm going to write it on Ford here. Tell me if you can see that, Norton. Let me know if you can read that. I bring that up for a very specific reason, because all the Ford guys love to use that as an argument against Chevy. And I'll give the Ford guys something else that they can throw back at Chevy. And I'm going to cover it here in a few weeks when I talk about the Cash for Clunkers program. Something that that every Ford fan is going to love to throw back in GM's face after this. Okay, so P. Norton, the reason I bring this up, because Ford accepted $9 billion to build 3 battery plants in the U.S. They took government money to build those battery plants. I can tell you right now, one of the battery plants, they pulled back and told the federal government to piss off, and they started building Super Duties. So they took one of the plants and started building Super Duty trucks. This, I did a little bit taxpayer money, correct? They used taxpayer money, $9 billion from the federal government to build 3 battery plants because they were investing so heavy into their EV program about a year and a half ago. When they realized that their Lightning wasn't selling like they wanted it to, they switched one of them over to a Super Duty plant. They didn't pay that money back. So they did take taxpayer dollars. Let me give you the one that all Ford people should be going after GM on. Right there. That's the one that everyone should be getting mad about. And they paid it back, didn't they? Oh, that just happened. They're still in the process of paying that back. Some of it they did. The government actually told them to pay back the Super Duty plant. So they had to pay that back right away out of pocket. The other ones that they're trying to still build the battery plants for, those they still have those out on loan yet. They're probably going to have to pay it back though, which is why they're slowly backing away from their Lightning project and their EV projects. They're doing the smart thing. GM is not. Ford is the only one so far that I know that hasn't taken bailout money. They have just as many problems as everyone else at the moment. So here's the thing. Like I said, they didn't take the initial bailout money, but they took $9 billion from the taxpayers to build these battery plants. The issue is that this certain president bought a bunch of stock in this company. And because of that, now we're seeing this company go back into the EV market. They're pushing the EVs even harder than what they did before. They haven't learned their lesson. Yeah, Hammer Gaming. A lot of people don't know this because this isn't going to be put on the news. This isn't going to be put out there. The only way you find out this is you remember it over time and you watch what people buy. I watch the stock prices on the auto industry quite regularly. And when I seen this happen, I knew exactly what was going on. He was going to use this to piggyback this company. This all happened during the Cash for Clunkers crap. And I'm going to be bringing that up when I do that video here in a few weeks. This led to the Cash for Clunkers crap. Wow, they are throttling me hard. Wow, they are, yeah. YouTube is throttling me hard for this video. I knew they were going to. Oh, I hate that. Absolutely hate that. So this is what happened, guys. I'm going to get this off the board. I can't even say these names, or otherwise they're going to throttle this even harder. So we're going to get off of that topic for a minute, because I need to let my chat rebuild, let the people come flowing back in here after that. That's how I know I'm on the right track, when they throttle my viewers. P. Norton, yeah, like I said, they all have their problems. I used to be for Toyota until they axed the V8, their V8s. Yeah, Toyotas went downhill after they stopped doing so much research and development, and they started cutting corners just to meet emissions for the US. That's when they started going wrong. And their new engines right now are absolute trash. There's a massive recall actually on a Toyota engine. I'm trying to remember if it was the 4-cylinder or it was the last of their 6 cylinders. But there's a massive recall out on all of them. They took the V6 out of the Camry just to make a hybrid system. Yep, that's the problem here. We're starting to see these hybrids as being nothing but thorns on our side. And that's not hybrid. It is not it. Yeah, hybrids are not it. They're turbo 6s. They grenade at 5K. Yeah, P. Norton's right. That's the problem, is they're having metal shavings in the engines. They're grenading because of the turbos. Turbochargers are not always the answer, guys. Not to get the power up. An old school motto that I was given was there is no replacement for displacement. This is not displacement at all. This is a hybrid system. So let's look at what this system does so we can start understanding why these things fail. We already know that this is nothing but an oversized alternator, so oversized. It's an oversized alternator. Most alternators run the electrical system in a vehicle. This is doing that, and it's supplying juice to go to the lithium battery that the battery can then give back to the MGU for its start-stop feature. And its low torque operation. So what are those two? We already know what the auto start stop is. Let's get into our auto start stop for a second. Auto start stop is designed that when the vehicle is stopped, so when the vehicle comes to a stop, what happens is it'll shut off the engine. So shuts down the engine. Then as you accelerate or you hit the gas pedal, it'll kick the engine back in, it'll restart. It'll restart the engine so that it'll accelerate. What this does is it creates a lag between when the engine is shut off and the engine restarts, meaning that when you press on that pedal, there is no movement for a first half a second. that half a second is delayed because it has to restart the engine before it can take off. This has become a big problem in major cities where it's constantly start-stopping. It's caused many accidents. But because they don't want to fix this problem, it's actually caused enough accidents where it should be investigated, but it's not. The fact that they removed the V6 out of the Tacoma is also bad. Yeah, it's a good example of what's going on there. The engine loses temperature and the coolant when the engine is shut off. Yep, that's some of the problem, is it'll also cool the engine down. When you accelerate, the temperature goes high. Correct, because it kicks it back in, and all that hot fluid that was in the engine, you know, all that was sitting in there boiling, and then as it kicks back in, the water pump kicks in and starts circulating it again, but now all the fluid that was in that engine is hot, and it's going to get flushed through the radiator, and it actually causes temperatures to actually continue to climb. So the more that they do this auto start-stop thing, it doesn't help with temperature, it actually drives the temperature. The temp of the motor goes up. So temp goes up because it's constantly starting and stopping, and it's not able to circulate the coolant like it's supposed to. They have tried to alleviate it with electric water pumps, but those things fail constantly. Hammer Gaming, this content really needs to hit the general public. Guys, yeah, share it, get it out there. The more you guys share, the more we'll understand what's going on, and the more we can talk about these things and make sure that everyone is informed on what they're buying. The only way we change these systems is by telling people to stop buying them. If they can't sell them, they're going to have to change back to the old way of doing things. And that's what has to happen. Yeah, they're throttling me so hard, guys. I knew they were going to do this. As a technician who has worked on this crap, I will never own one. Guys, that says a lot right there from Hammered Gaming. How do we push this information and help people that are buying cars? Number one, make sure you guys share my content. I also do stuff on buying cars, so get this video out there, share it. That'll help get people to know. The other thing is that recommend me doing videos related to other topics that help people understand. I also look at my mod squad. If you guys are helping sharing content, I take your guys' considerations pretty heavily. Because people knowing that in the long run they're going to get robbed, their money is still paying for. Yeah, it's a scam. It really is. It's going to come back to bite everyone who owns the Dodge Rams and the Jeeps with the eTorque in it. They're going to lose a lot of money and really fast. And we're going to start seeing a bunch of these vehicles get dumped on the market with those MGUs that are either failing or about to fail. Because what's going to happen is they're not going to spend the money to fix it, and they're going to get rid of the vehicle. And a lot of us are going to have to deal with the fallout of that. These EVs and hybrids, yeah, basically that's what's it, is we're all eating that cost. The sad part is the majority of people care more about body style, paint color, than longevity of vehicles. Yeah, that's some of it, P. Norton, absolutely. Nowadays, car brands make cash grabbing cars. Yep, some of it is a cash grab. So yeah, some of it is a cash grab, and when these systems fail, we wind up eating the cost because it isn't the first person who buys a car. The average person who buys a car, you guys can look this up on Kelley Blue Book. The average person only owns a car for 3 to 5 years. And what math did we just come up with? How long that 100,000 mile warranty is going to last? It'll last the first owner. After that, everyone else is going to eat that cost. Yeah, they're throttling me so hard. On my side, guys, I'm seeing that I only got like one person on right now. So I don't know. Everyone, give me a 3 if you guys are here. I want to do a tally right now and see how many people I have versus how many people it's telling me, YouTube is telling me. I'd like to know. So Hammered, Bill, Jay. Okay, it's saying we got 4. I got 3 of you that chimed in with a 3. Okay. Yeah, they're throttling us so hard. Yep. So this is the problem, guys. Is the person who buys the car only has it until that warranty is up, then they dump the car, and we wind up eating the cost on this as a second owner. What this is going to do to the used car market is absolutely destroy it, meaning that the car market is going to be trashed. And this is something I'll cover in the Cash for Clunkers program. This was designed this way. It's called planned obsolescence. They're planning on these cars failing. They're planning on these cars not sticking around. They're planning on us having to spend more money and be tied to the banks for our cars. They don't want us having 10-year-old cars and having them paid off. Yeah, there they go. They just throttled the shit out of me now. On my side, it says you have 6. Yeah, that's way more than what it's saying on mine. They're doing that on my side, guys, to try to tell me to stop filming. They do that. They kill the viewers on my side when I'm bringing up topics like this, so that I get discouraged and I shut the stream down. It happens, especially when I'm dealing with topics like this. I knew today was going to be a tough day. I knew I needed to get this out there because I had talked about all of this already. And I talked about it about 3 years ago. So let's break down where the problem is. The problem isn't here. And it isn't here in this computer either. It's right here. These are failing at the 60K mark. And what's happening is even people who have it under warranty, they're having to replace it again at 120. And the 120 is their cost. These things are alternators. That's all they are. And when they fail, and they do fail quite often, usually a couple times. Yeah, Jay, your count is pretty accurate with mine. Yeah, they're throttling this pretty hard. It's probably cutting out people's connection to it. Yeah, because I have a solid internet connection, guys. Yeah, I just checked mine. Yeah. I knew they were going to do this. So I'll just keep going with the content. You guys can chime in as we go, and then we'll move into a Q&A session after. So as these fail and we wind up eating the cost, there is no aftermarket supplier on these parts. So there's no aftermarket supplier. There's no way to get these secondhand. We're forced to go directly to Stellantis or Ram and Jeep. I don't even want to say Chrysler because Chrysler only makes one vehicle now, and I don't know how long they're even going to make that. But this is what's going on with this situation is this is the only company that has these parts. They're the only company that can program this part to the computer. This is proprietary technology. There's rules against this in the auto industry to keep this from happening. The reason why is because then they get to control the pricing. They can tell people, we want to charge $4,000 for this alternator. And no one can stop them because no one can build these. No one knows the technology. No one has the software to program it to here. So this is a one-way system that only these people can do. What happens is it overprices the system. They're allowed to actually overprice because there's no one else that can compete with them. Competition breeds lower prices. When there's no competition, we get garbage like this. Bill shows 3. Awesome. Yeah, it's showing, I'm up to 6 now. So hopefully this rebounds here, guys. I'm going to lay off of mentioning people's names. That probably got me in a little hot water there for a bit. P. Norton, I know how to work on cars. So I keep my 2020 F-150 for at least 10 more years. But for mist, I recommend buying only cars that have at least 100K warranty on them and get rid of them in 5. That's what everyone's doing. And that's some of the problem is we're not forcing the car brands to build cars that'll last for 20 years anymore. We're not forcing them to say, if you don't give me a quality car, I'm just not going to buy your product. Chrysler fell off in 2023. No, Chrysler fell off in 2021. Right after COVID, they went down. P. Norton, my wife's Chrysler Town and Country 2015, still good, but thankfully I convinced the dealer to replace the camshaft phasers. Yep, that's a big problem. And lifters and rockers with the 100,000 mile warranty. That was a good move. Get them to pay for that. At 107, the transmission started going out. I had to rebuild it at an independent transmission guy. Things run better than when they were bought new. Yeah, that's the sad thing. Because they're not even opening this system up and allowing other people to do anything with this. The problem is, there's aftermarket companies that could make these last longer. They would start by beefing up the bearings, because oftentimes in here, that's what goes wrong. The bearings go bad, cause enough drag that it doesn't produce the right electrical current to go back into this battery pack or to power what it needs to power off of the MGU. As that bearing fails, it tends to cause other problems. That's what happened to my customer. His MGU started to go out because this started to make noise. I also noticed that it damaged the tensioner. I replaced the tensioner not knowing that the bearing was going bad in here. As soon as we replaced this tensioner, it was highlighted that the bearing in the MGU went bad. That is one of the bigger failure points of these MGUs, is the bearing. Bearing failure is the biggest issue that we're having with these. Both the front bearing and the rear bearing have issues of going out. When they go out, they take that MGU with it. It isn't usually an electrical issue that destroys those MGUs. It's a bearing failure, just like in the alternators. When alternators fail, they take out the bearings, or the windings go out of it. Inside here, you don't necessarily have the winding setup that you have in an alternator. It's a different way that it generates that electricity. But what happens is the bearings are susceptible to stress and wear. And over that 60K miles that we're seeing them fail at, it's the bearings that are going out. And when the bearing fails, oftentimes it'll wreck the tensioner, and that shock in the tensioner will start leaking oil. That's one way to keep an eye on this system, is if that tensioner shock starts leaking oil, you have bigger issues going on, because what's happening is this is starting to slightly move up and down, which means it's moving that tensioner, causing that tensioner to have to stress more to where that shock starts leaking. But that already tells you that the bearings failed, because it's moving up and down so much that it already took out that shock. That's what happened to my customer. That was on a 2019 Ram with the eTorque. I believe that was one of the first years for the eTorque. And I was hoping that it was a one-year thing. I really did. I hoped it was a one-year thing, one-year problem, after that, they were going to get this figured out. But we're seeing 2022s and 2023s having this problem now. Seeing 2 and 3 year old vehicles starting to have that bearing failure and taking out those MGUs. 10 likes, guys. Thank you guys so much. Thank you for all the love here on this Sunday. This is a special that I'm doing because I did a bunch of reels on this 3 years ago. 3 years ago, I explained how this was going to be an Achilles heel for the Dodge, Ram, and Jeep vehicles because these were going to fail as often as alternators do. I was proven right. These things are failing to the point that they can't even keep them in stock or in supply. Meaning that when they want to replace these even at the dealership, they can't get a supply to replace them with. That's why we're seeing the shortage. Because they weren't willing to open up and allow other people to rebuild these things and give them the technology to program them with this computer, because they're keeping this system on a lockdown, these things are not getting cheaper and no one else can fix them. There is no aftermarket suppliers for this. And even if you were to find somebody that could rebuild these, they won't have the technology to program it in. That is from Dodge and Jeep only. Bill, back in the day, you could put a bigger, you could put a big and a brushes in the alternator. Yeah, back in the day, you could just rebuild the alternators. You could pull the casings apart, put new bearings in it. You could put bigger brushes in it or better brushes in it that would last longer. There was ways to rebuild them. Now, these things, it's got to go back to the dealer. The dealer sends them off to a separate company that they own that rebuilds these. J, 2020, 2021, and 2024 have problems also. Yeah, they're getting up there. I mean, all of them are having the problems. But what's really highlighting the issue is these 2 years are starting to throw a microscope on this bearing failure, because this is nothing but an alternator that goes out. It's a common time when that alternator were to fail, and you'd have to put an alternator in anyway. P. Norton, if you replace the alternator on a 2015 Town and Country, thank your lucky stars. Yeah. If I remember right, aren't those alternators buried underneath almost to the point that you have to pull the motor? Hammered Gaming. Jay, yes, the system has not been refined mechanically at all. There have been software updates, but for the mechanical failure system, still the same since 2019. Correct, Hammered Gaming. This entire system has remained the same since 2019 when it first came out. They haven't updated or upgraded these MGUs to withstand the bearing failure at 60K. They also haven't fixed the issue with the batteries wearing out at about the 10-year mark. We're going to start seeing these become an issue in the next probably 4 to 5 years. People are going to be eating this battery cost that we labeled over here earlier, and they're going to be really pissed off when they find out how much this stuff is going to cost them. And if this battery shorts out, this battery could take the entire system out, meaning you'll put a computer in it and an MGU at the same time, which means you're putting in that 15 grand. P. Norton, I would rather replace the heads than that damn alternator. Yeah. Yep, this entire system is just completely flawed and completely broken. We've covered now why these fail, what these are, and the reason for it. We've covered the company that's being affected by this. I don't want to say their name anymore. I'm going to try to avoid company names here for a little bit just because of viewership. We covered the battery pack and the lifespan on it. Now, the only thing that I don't like about the battery pack setups is a lot of times you need to know how to disconnect these systems. And if it isn't clear how to disconnect them, you don't want to mess with them. There's enough power stored in here that if you were to cut one of the cables or you were to accidentally grab a hold of something that you weren't supposed to, there's enough power there that it would lay you out or possibly do some serious damage to you. So I don't like playing around with these battery packs if there's no way to disconnect the system. But yeah, MGUs were a bad design from the beginning. The 2019 that I worked on, I'm gonna bring you guys back over here and we're gonna plop down. If you guys got any questions, go ahead and chat those in now. So now we'll transition into the question portion of the video for today. So hopefully that answered you guys' questions. Give me a 1 if it did, 2 if it didn't, and tell me why. And then I can kind of revisit some things that you guys might have missed if you guys haven't seen everything as of yet. But for the most part, this is what's going on with this system. Give me a 3 if you guys like the Sunday content over the Saturday. The only reason I got away from Sunday is I was using it kind of as a day of rest before I got back to my main job. But if it's easier for you guys to come in, hit it a 3 if you guys can come in easier on a Sunday, or if a Saturday works better. Oh, P. Norton, you retracted your comments. I don't know what you said there. Jay says probably Saturdays. I have church on Sunday. Yeah. Sundays are a lot tougher for me too. Yeah, P. Norton. Yeah, I don't want to say that one word on here because I'm already being punished for mentioning certain things already on this chat. You guys can see what's going on up top. But yeah, I don't want to mention that one word, but yes, batteries are nothing to play around with. These lithium batteries have an extreme amount of power in them. They're not a toy. It's not a 12-volt car battery. It's pretty bad. P. Norton, Saturday or Sunday, pretty much like flipping a coin. I'm going to probably keep it to Saturdays, guys, at 1 p.m. I'll do specials on Sundays when it comes up like this, but it sounds like everyone's kind of on that same boat of the Saturday at 1 p.m. Jay, imagine my dad's Camry engine, probably 30 to 60K. Yeah, without him doing regular oil changes, more than likely it's going to have severe engine damage when you get to that point, and you're either going to have to put an engine in it or just junk the car. Bill, the blank is the blank out of your pocket thanks to blank. You guys need to read his comment because I can't say any of that without having more problems on this chat. But yes, it wasn't just him. It was also who he worked under for 8 years. When I do that other video on the Cash for Clunkers, guys, I'm going to get punished severely for it. I know it already. I'm going to get punished. They're going to punish me for it. I'm guessing that my next week's stream is not going to have a good viewership because they're going to punish me for what I did today. But I owed it to you guys to be 100% transparent and honest. It's what I do. I'm not going to do something shady, and I'm not going to back down from a tough conversation. This is a tough conversation that needs to be had. That company royally messed up, and they need to have their feet held to the fire on it because we don't deserve to eat that cost, and we don't deserve to be punished for their bad decisions. This company made a really bad choice when they decided to replace an alternator with an MGU. That replacement ultimately is going to run up the bill for everybody that owns those vehicles. And for a vehicle to only last 3,000 to 5,000 miles and still cost us almost $100,000. It's not sustainable. Nobody can sustain that kind of cost. And that's the whole point here. It really is we can't have that much cost into something and then turn around and have it bomb out and fail on us. If we're going to spend $100,000 for something, we want it to last 20 years so we can get the value out of it. But they're not looking at that. They're looking at people that are not thinking logically. They turn around and buy these vehicles and then turn around and dump them back on the market, and they're constantly making payments. They never get ahead. They never build themselves up. They never get money back in their bank account because they're constantly chasing and making these payments. Again, this is another topic that YouTube doesn't like me to talk about, because I teach you guys how to take older vehicles, fix them, and put that money back in your pocket for maybe your next vehicle, or to be able to do other things. We can fix these. It isn't super hard. It isn't crazy to be able to fix a car. It becomes crazy when we start doing proprietary technology that no one can actually touch or work on. And that's what these MGUs are. They're proprietary technology, meaning they're the only ones who have access to it. They're the only ones rebuilding them. They're the only ones programming them. They're the only ones doing anything with them. Let's get caught up on some of the chats here. It's either going to be another 4-cylinder from like that crashed Camry or a 6-swap. Jay, how did the 4-cylinder Toyota engine at 60? Yeah, his dad doesn't do regular oil changes, so that's what kind of destroys the engine, because it just keeps getting built up in there. The oil gets contaminated and it just destroys the engine. That's why I don't like going above that 5K on a full synthetic oil, because it isn't that the oil fails, it's that the oil gets too contaminated from the engine. A lot of that has to do with us burning ethanol fuels. Let's be 100% honest. Yeah, they're going to throttle me again on that. Yeah, it's the ethanol fuels building up in there that's causing this problem. Is the ethanol fuels will build up the contamination with inside the engine. You'll get a lot more carbon deposits, stuff like that. That oil grabs on to those carbon deposits. And as it goes through, the filters aren't filtering out all of the carbon. That's what turns the oil black. And then it gets pushed through the bearings, and that's what does the damage on the inside of the engine. If you were able to eliminate that and keep a filter system that pulled all the carbon out, you could keep the oil clean enough where you never would have to clean or change the oil. The oil would stay fresh. The problem is we can't stop that process because it's all related to how it burns inside the engine. This is why carbon buildup has been such a massive problem lately. This is why oftentimes you got to take it in and have the carbon removed. Kias are horrible for this. You have to take a Kia in and have the carbon deposits cleaned out of the engine, otherwise it destroys the engine. Because the engines are made so cheap, the components are so cheap, that the carbon buildup will actually destroy the engines. Because they're not even built strong enough to withstand the carbon buildup. We had one here from P. Norton up top. 1980s Toyota Corolla. Bought it for $600, owned it for 2 to 3 years, never changed oil when I was young and dumb in college. Yeah, so that's basically what happens. Not keeping fresh oil and just destroys engines. Ooh, I'm sorry to hear that, P. Norton. Hopefully that didn't cause you any problems. Sometimes when people sell a car, and it comes back and bites them that way. Yeah, guys, that was a good chat right down there. P. Norton and Jay were having a conversation about one of the cars, talking about oil changes, the importance of oil changes, and how that can really make a difference in the lifespan of the car. Anyone running 7,000, now they're playing other games with me. Darn YouTube. All right, let's see if that helps. All right. So yeah, the oil changes are super, super important, guys. If we don't keep fresh oil in there, what can happen is the engine oil starts going bad. And it's not because the oil has failed. It's usually because it scoops up contamination with inside the engine. And that causes the bearing wear and the bearing failure and all this other stuff. Oil pumps themselves can go bad sometimes depending on the design. It's not an exact science of how that works, but oftentimes that can cause problems. All right, you guys got any other questions or anything else that you'd like me to cover in this live? If you do, chat it in down below. I knew they were going to school me on this live, because I went after a topic that was pretty controversial. Anytime we talk about hybrids or EVs, it doesn't do well in my algorithm at all. A lot of it is because they're trying to push this technology. So yeah, I'm going to give it a little bit of time to cool off before I go and, let's say, mention the other video. I don't want to say it again because I've already said it a few times, but it was voted on yesterday that everyone wanted to know what happened during that program with people trading in their cars and getting money from the government. That's all I can say. So I'm going to do that, but I need to give it a little time to cool down because this topic kind of lit up all of the red flags on my channel. So I'm going to need to kind of give it time to cool off. We are going to work on Malibu steel in the process, though. And in the process of working on Malibu steel, we want to get the car caught up, get it back on track, get it down on the ground. In order to do that, we need to get our front bumper assembled, and we need to also get our wheel liners put in, and also get our rims and tires put on the car. Before I can put rims and tires on, we are going to have to put new tires on the rims that I currently have. The rims are in really bad shape. Tires are even worse. So I'm going to have to see if the rims can get cleaned up good enough to be used again, or if I got to get new rims. I'm hoping most of it is just cosmetic and it isn't a whole lot of buildup on the bead of the rim, and that it doesn't impact the valve stem. This does have tire pressure monitors on it. So when I get the tires done, I am going to have to get those sensors recalibrated in order to make it basically work the way I want it to. So that's going to be probably next week's topic. We're going to start diving into that, and then we're probably going to get the bumper out, and we're going to start assembling things inside the bumper. That's kind of my main goal for next week, Saturday. And then the following week, we may or may not have a video coming. It all depends on, can I make it work with the current situation. I do have some stuff coming up that I got to be available on Saturday for that. So there may not be a Saturday video in 2 weeks. There may or may not be. So just pay attention to that. You guys can always follow me over at the socials, which is usually on Facebook or on Instagram. That's where I drop a lot of my reels prior to going live. That's how I get the information out. And then I try to create the live the day of in the morning. So that's what I've been trying to do lately, is get that live established with you guys here on YouTube. Because I only stream here on YouTube. I don't stream anywhere else. It doesn't pay for me to stream anywhere else. I don't get the interaction. I don't get the engagement. So it just doesn't pay for me to do it over there. We had a lot of likes in this one, guys. Hopefully I had a lot of subscribers. I'm going to check that out once we get off of here. But thank you guys for all your support today. This has been an awesome live. We've had a lot of stuff going on. Got one more here. Got to go start making dinner for the fam. Bad Wrench, Hammer, Jay. Been a pleasure. Awesome. Thank you, Pete Norton. Yeah, I'm going to be wrapping it up here too. We've been at this for a while, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap this one up for today. I want to say thank you guys for all your support. Continue hitting the like button, the subscribe button, ring that notification bell so you get notified when I go live, which is every Saturday at 1 p.m. Central. And as always, guys, I'll see you on the next one.